In March of 2022, a scandalous document went viral on social media. It alleged that the famous Nigerian influencer Hushpuppi, who's currently behind bars in the US, managed to scam people online for $400,000. In reality, the document, which looked like it came from the FBI, was a forgery. Still, people believed it anyway. The United States government even issued a statement clarifying that the document was a fake and that Hushpuppi was not scamming people from jail. That's how powerful his reputation is. Before we dive into how Hushpuppi wound up in jail, a story you may know very well, let's talk about how he basically had the Nigerian Police Department in his back pocket. In February 2021, the FBI filed documents implicating Nigerian Police Chief Abba Kyari in a $20,000 bribe scheme, or the equivalent of 8 million Nigerian Naira. The bribe stemmed from a scam gone south in which Hushpuppi tried to rip off one of his associates by not paying him what he was owed. The associate, Vincent, set up a meeting in Qatar between Hushpuppi, some other accomplices, and a gullible Qatari businessman. Hushpuppi arrived in Qatar and planned on scamming the wealthy businessman. If the scam worked out, Vincent expected a healthy commission. However, that meant everyone had to play their roles perfectly. Hushpuppi played a Wells Fargo banker from New York named Malik. His two accomplices played the finance guys. They helped assure the Qatari businessman that the investment was a guaranteed profit even though they were investing in a school. Hushpuppi said the school needed a little over $1.1 million. Once the businessman heard enough from the other finance guys, aka Hushpuppi's accomplices, he said yes to the offer. The businessman gave Hushpuppi the $1.1 million, who proceeded to launder the money by handing it off to several other associates. However, greed got the better of him. He sent Vincent some money, but not everything they agreed on. Upset, Vincent called the Qatari businessman and sang like a bird, telling him all about the scam. Hushpuppi was understandably upset and ordered the Nigerian police on his payroll to capture Vincent and keep him behind bars. He wired money into ABBAS account, and the chief took care of the rest. Vincent spent a month in prison, even though nobody ever filed any charges. Instead, Hushpuppi kept paying the cops to keep the door locked. Hushpuppi's real name is RAMON ABBAS. Despite being in jail for several major criminal charges, he still has a massive online following. His many followers are treated to hundreds of selfies of Hushpuppi standing in the most lavish and expensive-looking locations with exotic sports cars, private jets, and fine art perfectly placed in the background. Through his Instagram, Hushpuppi created a persona that embodied the flex culture. Every single one of Hushpuppi's posts, usually shot by an off-screen photographer, shows off his wealth in one way or another. Flex culture hasn't been around forever, and it'll forever be around. Plenty of people can't help but want to see that they can afford expensive clothes and toys by posting them online and being seen out in public. Hushpuppi went from being a shining example to a dedicated disciple of all things flex, a transition that ultimately led to his downfall. But how did Hushpuppi actually get famous? Where did he come from? In contrast to the wealth displayed on his Instagram, Hushpuppi grew up as a poor kid in Lagos, Nigeria, where he was born in 1982. We don't know much about Hushpuppi's childhood except for the few times he mentioned it on Instagram, along with a few unreliable sources from Lagos. Hushpuppi usually describes his childhood as poverty-stricken, as do the neighbors who watched him grow up. His father drove a taxi, while his mother sold bread on the side of the busy roads. Meanwhile, Hushpuppi, then called Ramon, earned money by selling second-hand clothes and bread like his mom. He also made some cash by washing parked cars on the street. According to the few records available, Hushpuppi didn't obtain fame and fortune until his big move to Malaysia. According to him, he moved there to achieve a better life. And sure enough, after moving to Malaysia, Hushpuppi got rich out of nowhere. And he wasn't afraid to show off his newfound money. But you already knew that. Before long, Hushpuppi had gained a following. He was famous for being rich, leading many of his followers to ask how. The media wanted to know too. Unlike titans like Zuckerberg and Elon, Hushpuppi didn't have a corporate entity associated with his name. So a few media organizations started asking Hushpuppi for interviews. However, when journalists asked him how he earned his money, the flex culture enthusiast always gave the same vague answer: real estate development. However, there aren't any major real estate projects attached to Hushpuppi's name, nor any companies. The lack of records only helped to fuel Hushpuppi's Gucci draped mythos. Hushpuppi's posts received praise from his adoring followers, who often left comments like Hush, as they sometimes called him, was their inspiration. They believed Hushpuppi built his luxurious lifestyle through smarts and, most importantly, hustle. The only people who didn't believe Hushpuppi's real estate mogul turned influencer persona were American federal investigators. They, along with international investigators and journalists, questioned the source of Hushpuppi's wealth and got some crazy answers in the process. A journalist from The Cable, a Nigerian media organization, visited the area where Hushpuppi, or Ramon as they knew him, grew up in Lagos. They interviewed a few of Hushpuppi's old neighbors who painted a different version of Hushpuppi than his millions of fans were familiar with. One neighbor, known to locals as Mama Deli, says Hushpuppi came by her home on occasion to beg for food. Mama Deli told the reporters that she only gave away food on credit, as she was strapped for cash just like everyone else in the neighborhood. She says Ramon ate her food several times without paying her back. He'd show up, hungry and pitiful looking, ask for more food, and leave with promises to pay her back. He kept that habit until one day, Mama Deli says Ramon stopped coming by. She didn't know it at the time, but he wasn't just avoiding his debts, he was working on a scam. The other neighbor The Cable interviewed chose to stay anonymous, but provided some interesting details on where Hushpuppi disappeared to. The anonymous neighbor says Ramon had access to a computer where he was becoming a Yahoo boy. The term is based on the email server Yahoo. People like Hushpuppi would send emails to the millions and millions of Yahoo email accounts, back when people still used them, to trick their victims into giving them money. The Cable says they've investigated several Yahoo cases in Nigeria. They usually involve someone claiming to be an American soldier stranded in Africa, asking a fellow American for money to help get them back home. When Ramon first tried Yahoo scams, he was unsuccessful. The anonymous neighbor says he was only making a few bucks here and there. Young Ramon's fortunes changed when he traveled to South Africa and learned more effective Yahoo methods from pro scammers who lived there. The neighbor says Ramon returned to Lagos with the tools for success and started making some serious money. Mama Deli recalls seeing young Ramon turn up one day, cash in hand. He walked up to her house and paid off all his debts. Then she said Ramon paid her to cook up a batch of peppered catfish soup. As time went on, young Ramon's spending only got more lavish. Another neighbor said that even after Hushpuppi moved out of the area, he'd still send money back to his friends for food. He told them to buy rice, beans, oil, and deliver them all to his mom. Speaking of his mom, he also bought her a car. Ramon's mother, according to the other residents, knew her son dealt in some kind of illegal business. However, she didn't know what kind. When Ramon asked his brother Yusuf to join and become his business partner, their mom put her foot down. She wanted at least one son to have a legitimate career. Ramon still visited his old neighborhood from time to time, despite people like his mother not liking him all that much. By this point, most knew Ramon as Hushpuppi, and his wealth was famous online. The locals in Lagos considered Hushpuppi a billionaire and expected him to give money back to the community that raised him. Mama Deli remembers when Hushpuppi visited her for the last time in 2018. He pulled up in a nice car and they greeted each other enthusiastically. Then he gave her 5,000 Naira, the equivalent of $12. Others in the neighborhood criticized Hushpuppi for only giving Mama Deli $12, but she told journalists she was happy to get it at all. It was probably because Hushpuppi gave almost nothing to the rest of his old neighborhood. A hotel owner asked Hushpuppi to buy his business, hoping the so-called billionaire could fix it up and turn the place into a high-end establishment. Hushpuppi refused. Hushpuppi's goals didn't include Lagos. They were much bigger than that. He wanted to be important and spend time with important people. He wanted to leave his origins behind, not revisit them by pumping money into it. And like Hushpuppi's childhood neighborhood, the Yahoo scams got too small for him. While traveling abroad, mainly in Malaysia, Hushpuppi participated in a few smaller scams until he reached his mid-20s. That's when Hushpuppi pulled off his two biggest and boldest scams of his illicit career. Unlike other fraudsters, Hushpuppi actually owned most of the expensive stuff he flexed online. Dealerships and jet companies have verified to inquiring journalists that Hushpuppi did in fact rent private planes, own Ferraris, Lambos, Rolls Royces, and the designer clothes he always had on. The flashy appearance inevitably attracted other new money individuals concerned with appearances. Most of them were European soccer players. Hushpuppi was good friends with English striker Tammy Abraham in particular. On Hushpuppi's 37th birthday, one of his last birthdays as a free man, Abraham told his big bro happy birthday in an Instagram post. Over time, Hushpuppi got to know other players and became well acquainted with Premier League social circles. Eventually, Hushpuppi and one of his business partners, Galeb Alamari, saw the Premier League as their next victim. His lawyer claims Hushpuppi earned his massive income from real estate development and being an influencer. In reality, Hushpuppi's fortune was built on BECs. In case you're unfamiliar, a BEC stands for Business Email Compromise. More specifically, it's when a hacker gets hold of a company's email address and tricks their customers into paying them money. For example, when Hushpuppi and Galeb tried scamming the Premier League, they first had to gain access to the organization's emails. Hushpuppi and his associates were supposedly working with hackers who had connections to state-sponsored hackers in North Korea. Once the hackers logged into the league's accounts, they could send emails to their contractors or people they did business with. Then they sent emails with new bank information and instructed the companies to pay their bills to this bank instead of the old one. The companies, blissfully unaware, obliged and sent whatever money they owed to the new account. Then Galeb cleaned the money from the bank account by laundering it through other accounts and businesses. Hushpuppi and Galeb's scam seemed smart. However, this particular scam was doomed from the beginning. They planned to steal $124 million from Premier League, an amount that most sports organizations was bound to notice. But up to that point, Hushpuppi had been undefeated in BEC scams. Experts believe the Nigerian influencer was getting cocky enough to try and pull off an impossible heist. They believe this hypothesis because of the Premier League fiasco and other brazen theft attempts he made in Malta. In February of 2019, the Bank of Valletta was cyber-attacked by the equivalent of a digital missile assault. The hackers savagely ripped and tore through the bank's systems, making off with around $14 million. Coincidentally, that's the same amount the FBI claims Hushpuppi tried to launder on the same date. Though the bank isn't named exclusively in the document, it would be a bizarre coincidence if the foreign financial institution described in the document isn't the same one in Malta. Whether it's a coincidence or not, Hushpuppi moved the stolen money to 4 different accounts spread across the world, and the FBI knew all about it. Thankfully, the bank traced the money and got it back into their customers' accounts. The FBI followed the money movements back to Hushpuppi by linking together texts he sent to Galeb. In the exchange, Hushpuppi asked Galeb if the money had come in yet. Galeb said yes, it was in Canada. Then, Hushpuppi asked for a screenshot, and Galeb said he'd send one after his flight. He never got the chance. FBI agents were there waiting for Galeb at the airport. Meanwhile, Hushpuppi was in Qatar, busy scamming the wealthy businessman. Hushpuppi and a few friends moved out to Dubai. One of those friends was an old pal from Lagos named Pak. Though Hushpuppi failed to give money to his Lagos community, he did, in fact, bring some of the community into his money. Hushpuppi tried to enjoy Dubai with his old friends, especially Pak. But during his vacation, Hushpuppi got 2 pieces of bad news. Galeb and another associate named Mamfa had been arrested at airports. Nevertheless, Hushpuppi was business as usual, posting pics in front of sports cars and snapping on boats with Dubai's skyline dominating the background. The fun ended on June 8, 2020 at about 1 in the morning. Pak was watching TV when a team of Dubai's SWAT agents erupted through the door and ordered him to lay on the ground. They went upstairs to Hushpuppi's bedroom and found him in his bed, dazed and confused, probably wondering why a bunch of armed soldiers were in his suite. They arrested every individual staying with Hushpuppi, then asked them where the money was. Eventually, they found Hushpuppi's stash. It included 21 laptops, 47 phones, $7 million worth of exotic cars, and $40 million in cash. No criminal wants to be extradited to the United States. But after Dubai police found the evidence in his suite, U.S. officials had more than enough to extradite him to an American jail. As of April 2022, Hushpuppi is awaiting trial and conviction for a laundry list of fraud. In other words, his passionate fans may not see him for a while. As for Chief Abba, he pled guilty to multi-million-dollar fraud charges in August 2021 and faced up to 20 years in jail. Then, things got even worse. Abba was caught working with a drug smuggling ring after the Hushpuppi saga. Now the ex-chief faces even more jail time. Click here to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comment section what you would rather do if you were a scammer in Hushpuppi shoes. Go on the run or turn yourself in.